My name is Bettina, and I would like to welcome you at today's masterclass on female founders and investors, organized by the VC Matchmaking team of the Department for International Trade. Earlier this month, we celebrated the International Women's Day, and it is certainly important to recognize female entrepreneurship not only on one day, 1 week, or even 1 month, but to do so continuously. You are certainly up for a treat today. We will start with hearing from Abby Mohammed, co-founder of Community Growth Ventures and program manager at Tech Nation. Abby will share with us a selection of best practice tips on virtual pitching, certainly very relevant in today's environment. We will then continue with an insightful panel discussion. Abby will be joined by Shalini Shemka, founder and CEO of E2 Exchange, and member of the Mayor of London's Business Advisory Board, and Olivia Sibony, CEO and co-founder of Seed Tribe. Both Olivia and Shalini are also deal makers in the Global Entrepreneur Program of DIT. After the discussion, we will hear from DIT's own gender network, my colleagues Laura and Katarina. I will now not take any longer and would like to introduce DIT's fantastic Christina Liaus, Regional Director and Investment Lead for Europe, for her opening remarks. Christina, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Bettina. Hi, everybody. I am Christina Liaus. I am, as Bettina said, the Regional Director for the Department for International Trade in Europe North, and I'm also the investment lead in Europe, seeking investment from Europe into the UK. Really happy to be part of the Venture Capital Matchmaking Masterclass here today, both because I think it's a really important task to link scale-up companies from Europe with the right contacts in the UK VC community, but most importantly because today we will focus on a topic that is really close to my heart, the funding and opportunities for growth of female-led companies. We can ask ourselves, of course, are men better entrepreneurs than women? And I think academic studies suggest that they are not. But how come then that a significant proportion of funding, seed or Series C fundings, goes towards male-funded and male-led companies? Did you know, for example, that for every £1 of venture capital that is invested in the UK, less than 1p goes to all female founder teams, less than 1p. And while 89p goes to all male founder teams, less than 1p, 89p, and 10% goes to mixed gender teams. That is really thought-provoking. 1 in 100 or less than 1 in 100 goes to female founders. So while venture capital is increasingly more available to female founders out there, progress is really, really slow. In fact, at the current rate, for all female teams to get just 10% of all venture capital deals in the UK, that would take over 25 years to achieve. So see you all back in 2046. Unfortunately, 83% of all the deals that the UK venture capitalists made in 2020, they had no women at all in the founding teams, 83%. So why is this important at all? Well, I think the business case is obvious. First of all, female founders outperform males. Let me just say that one more time. Female founders outperform males. Boston Consulting Group, they looked at 350 companies and found that for every $1 that they had looked at invested in startup companies, the female-run startup companies generated 78 cents of revenue, while the male-run companies generated just 31 cents. So 78, 31. The female-run startups companies generated more revenue despite raising less money. And Boston Consulting Group are not the only ones saying this. The data is quite consistent. First Round Capital, for example, found out that female founders performed 63% better than all male teams that they had funded. And the Irvin Marion Kaufman Foundation found that women-led teams generated a 35% higher return on investment than all male teams. So females are really important here. The second reason, and that might sound a little bit counterintuitive, is that female founders are less motivated by money. Many different reasons why and motivations why you want to start a business in the first place, but males are nearly 8% or 8 times more likely to be motivated by financial gains and profit than women. Actually, the numbers are 15% male entrepreneurs to 2% female are sort of motivated by profit. And we know that investing in profit-driven entrepreneurs is or can be really risky business. So leaders motivated by profit alone are more inclined to make decisions that are not in the best interest of the company in long term. So female founders being less motivated by money is a real advantage. Thirdly, females are just more likely to prioritize CSR, corporate social responsibility. The University of California and Berkeley Business School found that companies with women at their board were more focused on environmental, social, governmental, and governance issues, the triple bottom line, and that than companies with no female board members. And why is that important? Well, that is important because 87% of consumers are willing to buy a product or a service based on the company's advocacy concerning a social matter. Consumers, they want companies to take a strong stance on CSR, and companies are increasingly assessed according to their ethics. And by the way, research also shows that companies listed on the world's most ethical companies list outperform the Standard & Poor's 500 index by at least 3.3%. So this is also really profitable. So really good reasons to look at women-led businesses. And we know we're going to talk about barriers and pitching and so on. And I was just finding really this study from the Academy of Management really interesting that said that during investment pitches, female entrepreneurs are more likely to be asked prevention questions. So these are questions related to safety and potential risk and potential losses and what might go wrong, while in contrast, male entrepreneurs are more likely to be asked promotional questions about their hopes, their ambitions, and their achievements. And the difference in these modus operandi has really measurable impact on the funding that each gender receives. So those that are asked promotional backed questions, they raise significantly more cash in the end. So biases and prejudices are limiting our ability to see clearly here. So access to funding is still a specific and persistent barrier for the too many women when starting and growing their business. We know that we are losing out. The research from the Women's Business Council show that in the UK alone, the economy is missing out on over 1.2 million enterprises, new enterprises, due to the untapped potential of women. So now really it's a time to bridge this gender gap and do something about it. And it is our hope that this masterclass can contribute to this movement and hopefully provide some great return on investment along the way. Thank you very much.
Christina, thank you very much for these fantastic points and setting the frame so well for today's important discussion. Christina, you will be back shortly with us for the panel discussion. But before that, I am now very glad to invite Abby Mohammed, co-founder of Community Growth Ventures and program manager at TechNation, to talk about virtual pitching. Abby, the virtual stage is yours.
Hey everyone, lovely to be here. Quickly, I'm going to share my screen with you all. So, hi everyone, my name's Abby Mohammed. I am a program manager at TechNation, an organization helping scale digital businesses across the UK. Additionally, I am also the co-founder at CGV, so Community Growth Ventures, an angel group based in London investing in underrepresented founders. So just to let you know, guys, we are here. We are going to be backing women. We are going to be backing minority, and I'm super excited to be here. So before I get into the virtual pitching masterclass, I just want to give you some context of what we've been doing so far in the background. So I've seen over 250 pitches in my day since 2018. And for us, when we invest, it's a long searching game. And honestly, the truth, the first meeting is the most important meeting from a founder's perspective. So from the 200 pitches, I've invested, well, me and my teammates have invested in 3 companies. So you can see how long it takes for us to figure out which is the best investment. And I'm going to talk about the timeline of investment just shortly. We're also closing 2 more deals. I'm proud to say so far, majority of them are all women and all of them are from minority background. I'm very interested in helping founders scale beyond Series A. In the bigger picture, it's super important to have these technologies and these mindset in the economy for our future and how we're going to shape it and how it's going to look like. So over to the timeline. So I just want to note, this is a timeline from my perspective as an angel investor. From a venture investment timeline, it might be differ, but I'm going to simplify the process and really give you some context of like how an investment decision is made from an investment perspective. So for us, we see a founder submitting via online. And from there, we're able to figure out whether this is an interesting idea. And that's when we decide yes or no when we get to the first meeting. A founder comes to the first meeting and then they pitch. We go away, we decide whether we like them or not, or the idea, and we come to a conclusion of whether we need to do a follow-up information or whether we need to maybe send some email questions. From that point of view, we decide whether we want to continue, and that goes to due diligence. And then also we come back and we decide whether it's a yes or no. The good news is we do have a community investor group where we ask the community to come along with the ride and help us fill the rounds. So our last investment, we was able to close 100K for the allocation for the founder, which is super exciting, so we can have more of an impact and pre-seed. We also help lead, so we're able to help founders really shift their term sheet and help them with the negotiating. For me, my perspective, especially from a minority background, I want to give founders the best friendly founding term sheets for their journey, because as a founder, generally this is not going to be your first input of capital. You're going to go through multiple rounds of capital. So just a note, I saw a question about TechNation, whether we invest. TechNation doesn't invest. It's an accelerator program. We do different things. Just to note, I do wear 2 hats. So I am a program manager at TechNation, where I help scale ups via a program. And then I'm an angel at CGV, where I invest my own capital. So 2 different things. I hope that helps. And the ticket sizes for CGV, generally in a team, we go for 10 to 25K, and we can bring our community investors and go all the way to 100 or 150K. And then once we negotiate the term sheet, you become the portfolio family and we give you aftercare and support. So I'm going to be concentrating on the first aspect, the first meeting, when you're virtually pitching. Well, virtually pitching now because of COVID. So back in the days, I generally caught up with the founders face to face over coffee. So now we need to do these online, and it's actually quite different. And I'm going to give you some tips and practices of how to make it the best impression and hopefully get you from this stage to this stage. So virtually pitching via Zoom. I'm sure you're sick and tired of hearing Zoom. I can't believe that it's an actual term now. So what I advise, the first thing is have a strong story. So going back a little bit, the reason why I've decided now to have a first meeting with you as a founder is I found your business interesting. So you need to now park it in your head that I'm okay and you're fine and your business proposal is interesting. Now you need to sell it. And you'd be surprised the first time I meet a founder how uncomfortable the conversation can be sometimes. Remember that I'm a human being, so it's okay. We are having just a general chat. And I always advise founders at the beginning to have a strong story. It's interesting because the amount of times I've been in first meetings and it's been over 30 minutes and I don't get what you're doing. Like I literally don't understand the problem and solution. So if you're able to get those key things in the first minute, that will get me engaged, hooked, and wanting to understand more. So having a good story is super important. Saying that, do not talk all the way through. Just have a general story for the 5 minutes and then go into like a free-flowing conversation with your investor. That way you feel relaxed, making me feel relaxed, and we can have a really conversation and I can dig deeper than your pitch deck. I really want to understand your vision and where you're coming from, because with pre-seed investment, I'm not really investing that you have business in the point where it's like, okay, like the right business, because you're always going to be pivoting. So it's not market fit, it's more about founder fit. And what I mean by that is, do I believe you're the right founder to really pull this off and scale in the long run? Second point is, it's all about your tone, your facial expression, and your flow. Everyone has a different type of flow and expression. So be you, be natural. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be robotic. Go away, figure out your style. I always tell people, practice with your friends, like having a conversation. When I'm having a conversation with you, I want to get a feel of what type of personality you are, because that gives me an indication whether I want to work with you in the future. And unfortunately, there is biasm in this world, but then the best way you can do it is just be yourself, because at the end of the day, you want an investor that accepts you who you are, because the investment journey together, especially if I invest in you, it's going to be a long marriage, and I'm talking about 5 to 7 years. So you want to make sure as well for yourself that you are connecting with the investor and you have that expression. So feel free like to express yourself. You have this tiny little box, so work the screen. I'm very like hand person, so I move my hands around. And when I listen, I come closer so you can see me being really engaged. Goes to my third point. Don't have your camera off. I've seen so many founders having their camera off, and it's so off-putting for me personally, because at the end of the day, I want to invest a huge amount of capital into you. So I want to build trust and transparency right from the beginning. And having your camera on, having that human element, especially in the virtual world, is super important. And I know it's difficult sometimes, especially working from home, finding the space and everything, but please try to do it. Find a quiet space. If you have to, I have family as well. I have to like prep my family to be quiet when I have a meeting, so I can fully engage and show you that I am a real human being at the end of the day. And then fourth tip as well, especially in the first meeting, do a demo of your product. You'd be surprised how many founders I meet and I go to them, okay, I get it, because I've already got all the information about your market size, how you're going to be penetrating your first customers, your traction. I really want to see it working. So do a demo. And then also when you're doing the demo, make me feel like you're the user. So talk from a user's perspective, how the user is flowing through from A to Z your product journey. So I can understand the sticky points, the points where it is hitting, and what's happening as well from the client side or customer side. And then also it's important when you're talking about your demo and your product is talk to me about your customer feedback. You'd be surprised how many times I ask founders, what has your customer said? Because at the end of the day, you're not the customer. I'm not the customer. I really want to hear whether they really like your product to get me the validation that I understand. I feel like you understand that you've done the correct way, or maybe you're pivoting and stuff like that. And that's a key thing, especially when you're going forward, when you're building new features. So tell me what the customers are saying. And then also, what else? Also, yeah, tell me what the customer is saying, who your customers are. So if you're able to create like a customer persona, like go into detail. What does that customer do on a daily basis? Where do they live? What they do outside as a hobby, so I can paint this picture in my head what type of customers you're going for, so I understand what your solution is providing them. So yeah, that goes to my last point. So failure is just a practice for success. I can't believe, like, sometimes it's so hard to practice alone. The best way of practicing is just try to secure as many pitch meetings as you can. It's a numbers game. And I promise you, the more you do it, the more you figure out your style, the more you figure out who you are, and then you become perfect. So don't worry, everyone is the same boat as everyone else. We all have to do it. The investors have to do it. The founders have to do it. So practice, practice, practice. Thank you.
Abby, thank you so much for your presentation on the investment timeline, and also for sharing all these great tips and advice with us and our audience. I've certainly made notes myself. Can I now please invite you to join our upcoming panel discussion? And if I can please also ask Shalini, Olivia, and Christina to join. And once ready, I would like to pass the word to Christina, who will chair the discussion.
Thank you so much again, Bettina. I think that what we will do, I have quite a lot of questions here, but if anybody in the audience would like to ask a question to any of the panelists, please just put it in the chat and I'll see if I can monitor it over there. But let's start with just one simple question. Are there any steps that, this is for the panelists, any steps that firms can take to increase the diversity and the inclusion in the teams that they fund?
Would you like me to answer that, Christina?
Go ahead. Hi, Shalini. Hi.
Question. I think there's a number of things to think about here. There's a lot of good work happening to encourage funds to think about women, and the world is beginning to change slowly. But one of the things that we collectively should be doing is encouraging a lot more of these funds to attribute percentages of their funds to female-founded businesses. I love the fact that, I don't know if you remember, in the UK a few years ago, we had the 30% Club, and behind the 30% Club was a whole agenda to ensure that 30% of boards had women. And one of the things that we are keen on is to encourage more and more funds to have a percentage, like a quota, of the monies that they have to deploy to attribute towards women. And I won't go through the figures in the it's very, very clearly understood that having a diverse board, both in terms of female and ethnic diversity, does make a huge difference to the success of these companies. And I'd like to encourage everybody who's on this call to really make sure that we are pushing that agenda as women. I think, is the line disturbed? Can you hear me okay, Christina? You can.
Yeah,
so
it's
those are the points. The other thing is there are some great funds out there, female funds. Okay, I'll ask someone else to then speak while I try and see where I can get a better reception.
Yeah, okay. Abby, do you have anything sort of you want to contribute? I like the sort of 20 or was it 30% club? I think that's a great idea.
I think from my experience and what I've seen, especially from the London ecosystem, a lot of more funds, especially venture funds, are considering having a quotas for investing in diversity. And I've seen it successfully, especially when they encourage the ecosystem to be part of it. So some venture VCs such as like Ada Ventures and Back VC, what they have is a scout system where they have diverse scout members across the UK, really working on grassroots level to really find good talent. And what happens then, it breaks that barrier for the founder, especially if you're from a minority group. They were able to speak to people that look like them, they feel comfortable, and they're able to explain their story better. So what the scout does now is go back to venture capital and hold them accountable. So I've seen that really working well. And then also the numbers are changing, especially for women. But then if you penetrate that number and you look at the intersectionality, so ethnicity, we have a lot more work to do, but we are moving in the right directions.
Absolutely. Olivia, do you want to come in?
Yes, hopefully people can hear me. I know the sound's a bit challenging. Okay, great. So I completely agree with all of those. So I would add to that, because I think those points made are extremely important, and we really need people, you know, we invest in our image. So the more we have people in the decision-making seats who represent the diversity of founders in the population, the better chances everyone has of diversity. I'd say just to add to that, then there are also just things you can do on your website, right? You can have, firstly, you can reach out. There are a number of, as Abby was mentioning, there's Ada Ventures, etc., but there's also recruitment firms and other groups that specifically specialize in helping recruit diverse founders, whether it's ethnic diversity or whether you want, you know, we want more female coders. There's a lot of groups around that, etc. So I would sort of recommend going out of one's way to reach out to those networks and get people from there. And then the other thing is also just showing it on your website. There's actually a website I came across a few days ago called MetaLab, and I really liked their About Us page. And then within that, it sort of, they've got great user experience. I came across a chance to recommend it. Anyway, they've had a whole diversity policy, and it was really wonderful. It was really transparent and honest, and actually quite impressive as well, but about showing all of the different stats of their diversity, both in terms of ethnicity, gender, broken down by seniority, type of role, geography, etc. And I just thought it was beautifully presented and really, really transparent. And again, it just, if you are from a sort of underrepresented background, actually it's really helpful to see you know, what you're getting into, and look at the policies and stories, etc., to help you feel comfortable. And the last thing I would say is, in addition to recruiting, actually bring these people along the journey with you, because it's not just about bringing them on board, it's about enabling them to feel comfortable sitting in the culture as well. And that culture needs to be inclusive, rather than just let's tick the box of recruiting people and assume that is all okay.
That website, that sounds fascinating. I'll definitely note that. Please put the link in the chat. Shalini, do you want to come back and expand on your thoughts? Oh, now no sound. You have to unmute.
Great. Can you hear me now? Great. Yes, I'd like to reiterate some of the things that Abby was saying. I think obviously it's important for funds to attribute monies towards women. But I guess personally, I've raised money for my own company. I never really approached it like I'm a woman, and that's I need to go to female founder funds. I think it's very, very important to approach it in such a way that, irrespective of our gender, what we need to be is very, very skilled in our investment pitch. So the tips that Abby gave, and Abby, I need to congratulate you, they were fantastic tips. Those are the things that we really need to be thinking about, is how do we show the strength of our business, the strength of our character, understanding the market, the valuation, the competition, and those sorts of things, and not let the gender aspect be something that puts us back. Having said that, we need to be smart and strategic as women, that if there are female funds, we should definitely try and go to them and make sure we, you know, that's probably a smart strategy to approach those sorts of businesses. So those are the things I wanted to add there.
Super, thank you so much. I was just thinking, and there is sort of a follow-on question in the chat as to what I said about the advantages of getting women into either as founders or all female teams and so on. Have you seen anything specific that I didn't mention in the start about, you know, why would you choose women? Why are we so special as women? You know, what's the point?
I mean, from my experience, we've got 23,000 members in our company, which is called E2E, and I work as a deal maker in addition with Liv. But what I've noticed is a lot of the female-led businesses are actually a lot more strong and successful in terms of their appetite to risk, how they manage the structure, how they manage the execution. So I don't think it's just numbers that's on paper. Actually, genuinely, female-led businesses are worth backing, and some of the strongest businesses in our network are run by women. What we want to try and encourage is more women to become CEOs. So rather than becoming an employee, being an employee, if you're really passionate about a particular initiative, to run your is actually nothing better as long as you have that personal DNA. So I think what I'm trying to encourage with E2E is to see more women set up their own companies and grow their companies.
Yes, please. Olivia, do you want to expand on that?
Sure, and yeah, and I completely agree with Shalini, and it's brilliant to see her organisation supporting women in that way. And I would say, you know, to your point, Christina, it is just the more diversity we have in the team, the better diversity of views we have, and the stronger it will be. You know, I personally find that if I'm alone, I have my set of ideas, and I'll go down that route, and it's natural that I'll you know, inevitably miss out on a whole bunch of different perspectives. And so the more someone comes from a different angle, the better it is. And it's interesting, actually, slight aside, but there was a report recently that came out around why migrant founders are so important. And actually, that, you know, in the UK, we have a huge amount of migrant founders, and they do very, very well because actually they come from different perspectives, and they are able to already embody that change in mindset, because as a starting point, you know, they've come from another culture and they're in a new one. So it really is an opportunity to thrive. And I feel very, very strongly that if we look at diversity as a bonus rather than a box ticking exercise, we will be a lot stronger.
Absolutely sound here. There are a couple of questions in the chat bar. I saw one. Can you mention something about that women consistently fail at when pitching or fundraising, areas to look at where we could fall flat? Is there something specific that women do that we should stop doing? Yes, come on, Olivia.
It's a difficult question, that one, and it's a good question in many ways. I can only talk from my observations. I think one of the things I've seen is sometimes we as women are not clear on our valuation. So we go in with quite a broad valuation, and me as an investor, I like to back businesses where the founder is quite clear on what the valuation of their business is, rather than hoping to hear it from the investor themselves. So being very, very confident around what you feel your business is worth is probably one of the areas that I maybe, and this is a difficult one because it's there is nothing that generic in my view. Everyone is quite individual.
Absolutely. Olivia, you had also a hand up for that.
Yes, I did, and I was using the word confidence, but I was not necessarily going to refer specifically to valuation so much, just generally the way in which you project yourself. It's just, you know, we tend to be nervous, we might feel out of place because of all of these biases and challenges and barriers that we've been discussing. So there's just our sort of general, as a generalization, that sort of female tendency to have imposter syndrome and maybe not have the confidence that we should have. And honestly, no matter how nervous you are, just give yourself that pep talk in the mirror. Just put yourself in the shoes of, just make yourself know that you belong and that you're doing something really great. If you believe in it, you should have the confidence. And, you know, I specifically focus on the impact side of things, so addressing, you know, social and environmental challenges with a profitable business model. And for me, it's just this inescapable duty that we need to increase the impact of these companies, because they're going to have a positive impact on the world. So you could feel it as not so much something that is around you, so much as you being the really strong, confident and trusted messenger who is on this mission to address something, you know, much greater than yourself. So you would honestly be doing yourself a huge disfavor by having over modesty or sort of shyness, even though that's probably, you know, what you might feel inside.
Absolutely. Abby, do you have a contribution here? Is there something you want to add?
Yeah, I think all the points was raised really well. I think also one thing that we should stop doing, and I'm going to be very straightforward with this, is stop going to funds that don't support you. Simple as that. Like at the end of the day, like when you do go through this multiple rounds of funding and raising and scaling, you are initially making these investors rich. So take care of your cap table, decide who you want to take along with the journey, because at the end of the day, those financial gains are for everyone. So I think honestly, in the long run, yeah, we should stop supporting funds that don't support women, end of. And then one more thing as well with pitching, I believe you should do more research on the investor themselves. The one thing that I've noticed, investors generally sit into two segments. You either are like impactful and like, you know, you care about the long run for the society and make sure the pitch hits those kind of qualities. So generally what happens is investors that are male, they think about financial returns. So when you are pitching and you are trying to elaborate your story and what you're trying to do, try to lean on those side where you're reassuring that investor, yeah, if you back me, I will make you rich in the long run. We have to play more smarter because again, there are bias and pattern matching and all that. But then in the long run, yeah, we are going to get better at this. So eliminate the funds that are not doing well because they're not going to get backed by the LPs in the future because they're not thinking about diversity, and go to funds that are supporting women.
Interesting. Thank you so much. There is one of our participants that is saying, I'm a bit confused about the message here. Are women raising less money because they are lacking business skills or because of a cultural state of mind in the investment community? Does anybody want to, Olivia?
Sure. I'd say to the I don't think there is one single answer. So I'm going to turn my video off. It sounds a bit hopefully that's better. It is a bit of both, to be honest. It really is. There is not one single factor. And actually, Christine, the point you made in your introduction, I thought was so important in terms of, for example, the biased questions that investors tend to ask. It has been proven that, you know, women do get asked more limiting questions than men. And you don't even realize that you're just answering the question. But the men tend to ask women questions around, you know, risk management, all of the dangers and all of the things that could go wrong. And they ask the men about the sort of opportunities for growth. So of course you asked about the risk, you're going to answer in a risk-based way. That's not your fault, but the more you understand the bias in the original investor, the more you can try and just listen out for that and slightly twist the answer to your question. So they're going, oh, well, of course, but you know, and then twist it back into a positive. So it's a little, it is everything. That's probably why you're confused by the answer.
Yeah, you have to turn the question around as you get those limiting questions. I think that's an art maybe to perform.
Yeah. Can I add to that? I absolutely agree with Liv. I think also what is obvious is that women delay. They do wait. We wait to ask for money to go and do the investment. We are a little bit more cautious. So part of the reason that women are raising less is we tend to be a little bit more risk averse, and we prolong the time that we go for fundraising. And we need to encourage them to take a bit more like men do and grow businesses a bit earlier. Kind of go to the question. There was a question, well, Christina, around what stage of business, what stage should you seek funding? And I'd just like to build that if you have a solid business, first of all, it's friends and family rounds. But at the moment, the UK has a huge amount of grant support. So Innovate UK, they've put a lot of money into what they're calling smart grants and other forms of grants. So my suggestion on that question is Go for VC funding when you've got the business, it's running and you're making good money and you're showing that your business has really got mileage, because you don't want to give away equity too quickly, but at the same time, don't leave it too long because you need the money to grow the business. So if strong businesses, if we apply for these grants, they may be very successful, and therefore you're not giving away equity when you're going for grant funding.
Yeah, can I add on to that point? Because I think so what I think what's been touched already is super, super important. And I just want to make it clear, because sometimes when people think about raising, they automatically think venture capital money. There's alternative routes. So as I mentioned before already, grants is an option. There's also angel investing. There's also debt money as well you can take. There's so many different ways of doing it. Some accelerator programs have bundles of capital with their support. So that's another option. And the thing is, when a founder accepts venture capital as well, you're preparing to grow super fast. So if you are building a business where you don't want to grow super fast, or you're not ready to grow super fast, don't take venture capital. Because what happens is, as soon as you let VCs on your cap table, they will take a board seat, and because they have to return their funds back to their LPs, because it's not their money, they will make big decisions whether to keep you on as a CEO. And that's the truth about it. No one really talks about what happens later on, when you do accept VC money in the long run. So it depends on what type of business do you want to be. Do you want to be a unicorn, which is sometimes not attainable? Or do you want to be a zebra, where it's a sustainable business? And that should be the key thing that you need to decide. What type of business do I see this being in the next 5 to 10 years? And then decide on what type of capital you should accept. And then also don't accept capital too quickly, because then you might also run in a situation where you fail as well. So having too much capital too fast is a bad thing. Having no capital enables you to fail, because you run out of runway. Having a happy medium is the best place to be.
I think Olivia agrees. Absolutely. So there is a question in the chat that I'm pretty interested in. So why are women less interested in financial gains than male counterparts? Is there any explanations for this? Do we know? Does anyone know? We are just less driven by sort of the profitable thing, the profits, than the being rich.
I couldn't give an answer on the biological reasons, but certainly from experience and statistically, it just does seem very, very, very clear. I see a much larger proportion of women, female founders on my platform than I see on the sort of national averages, because they are purpose-driven. The biological reason I couldn't comment on, but there is this sort of, again, as a generalization, we think, we think beyond ourselves. We're the sort of, the nurturers, the carers, the ones who sort of work collectively and collaboratively. And therefore we tend to sort of think in that sort of bigger mindset beyond ourselves, is my experience, but I don't know why that would be for women.
Christina, can I come in on here and actually back what Liv is saying? I think it is the purpose-driven DNA that we have. I'll just give you one example. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a lady. She applied for membership to E2E. She has a sort of 30 million turnover company in online vets. And the reason she applied for membership is she was struggling to think about these were really appropriate. They want to get involved in business, but she said, I did this for the love of animals, and she's a vet, and she never really wanted to give away equity to a third party, and she's run this business on her own with her family. So the decision she came to was actually to raise more money to grow at a faster rate. She will only give equity to her employees. So she started now that her employees will take a stake in the business, so they will invest, and she's raising her first round of funding through, and this is, you're talking about nearly a 30 million turnover business. She's never had money in the past from anyone else. She's grown it organically in a 10-year period. She's done extremely well. And that's because I think the DNA and her passion behind it was the purpose. So if you bring in third parties, so this is part of trying to answer that very difficult question, Christina.
Yeah, that's part of what I said in the beginning. I mean, I think women are less driven by profit than men are, but maybe, Abby, do you see that in the women coming to you? I mean, I don't think that we normally think of ourselves as women. I mean, we are entrepreneurs or whatever we are. But is there a difference, Abby, in your perspective, or are we just thinking of ourselves? And should we just be thinking ourselves as entrepreneurs and founders?
Yeah, this is such an interesting thought, and I don't know the science behind it, but I from my perspective and how I've grown, is something that being an entrepreneur was never been given to me. I've not been able to physically see it, hence why I've never been able to comprehend whether I could do it or not. Coming from a minority, like my parents are immigrants, I've always been told to go to safe stuff. So we've never been prepared to, be business leaders, be thought leaders, do amazing stuff. And it's like really upsetting. I think recently there's now been more films and like TV series about Black women doing amazing stuff in science and like invention and stuff like that, which I never had when I was growing up. So hence why I was like, it was by accident. Like, honestly, truth, yeah, the only reason why I'm here is I accidentally went with my little brother to an open day for him to do IT, and I got an all, and I was like, oh my god, I saw this woman speak, and then that's when it clicked. I think it's all about where you are at the time. In time we will get better. I think there's now more policies to encourage more women at a younger age to be encouraged into business and IT, so hopefully that perception or the status quo will change in the long run. But yeah,
we all need those role models and people inspiring us, I think. Just we are running out of time, so I just want to ask each of you on the panel to give us your absolute best advice for female founders when seeking venture capital or any other form of capital in the next round, or whenever they are ready to do that. What would be the most important thing to think about?
I can start.
You've got the floor.
So my best advice when you are raising or even like starting a business is find like-minded women like yourself. I think that's super important. Having that support network around you to go through that scale journey will be very beneficial. Like having someone that's experiencing the same thing that you're going through to assure you're not going crazy, you are doing the right thoughts. Yeah, that's the best advice. So find women that are entrepreneurs. I would recommend, if you're from a minority group, YSYS. It's really good in London. Otherwise, join Twitter. You can find your entrepreneur family easily by just doing #women in VC or #women entrepreneurs. And yeah, that's it.
Super. Shalini?
Sure. There's a few things I'd like to say, if I may. I think firstly is to do the prep, the research, and make sure that you spend time with the investor. We're all in a hurry to raise money, but don't do it too quickly. In terms of do your due diligence, go for dinner, get to know the investor, because I think Abby and Liv said it before, is once you've raised that money from that investor, then you're in bed with them, so to speak, for quite a long time. So do that research. The other thing is take referencing. Don't go just on your gut feel. Ask other people who've had investment from that particular VC, or even if it's an angel, it doesn't matter. Take referencing so that what you're not doing is not enjoying the journey. Because we're running these businesses so that we can enjoy the journey, we can build something good. The dynamics change as soon as other people come in. So it's best to go with the people that you feel a good level of trust with. And I think the third thing I would say on this is about execution. Be very, very solid in your execution of your business and know exactly what you might want to need for the next round, so that your valuation is absolutely spot on. So for example, if you overvalue your business in the first round, when you come to the next round of funding, it's very difficult then to raise money. So be conscious and cautious and do your research around it.
Super. And Olivia, very briefly from you, because we're running out of time.
Yes, I could not back their points more. So I would say act like you belong, and just know that you've got this.
Super. Thank you so much, all of you. I think I'll hand back to Bettina for the next part of this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was really great. Many thanks, Christina, for being such a stellar chair. And of course, many thanks to Olivia, Shalini, and Abby. You all made really valuable contribution today. And I very much enjoyed listening to this discussion, and I'm sure so did everyone else. And I'm really looking forward to welcoming you soon again at other events in the future. And we are now nearing to the end of our session. But luckily, we are still to hear from Laura Durant and Katarina Caria about DIT's own gender network, as this is certainly a topic of importance to us at DIT. Laura, Katarina, please join us.
Thank you, Bettina. Just check if you can see me.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Hello, Katrina. So the idea of, we're just going to have 5 minutes with you. The idea is to present you the gender network of the Department for International Trade. I'm one of the coaches of this network, and I leave Katrina introduce herself.
Thank you. I am the Overseas Gender Champion for Europe, besides working as Trade and Investment Advisor at DIT. And as the Overseas Gender Champion, my job is to keep an eye out for the activities that are going on in Europe and to keep the conversation going. Back to you, Laura.
Fantastic. Thank you, Katrina. So the idea is basically why we are having this external meeting with an external audience, to also let you know what the UK government is doing about gender equality, and actually how the UK government is working with the private sector, and how you can benefit from some of our initiatives to improve the gender equality in for startups, in the venture capital industry, in financial services sectors, and across sectors in general. So who are we? We are a member of 600 staff, all based either in London or overseas in the British embassies across the world. So also relevant for you if you're not based in London, but if you're based in Europe or any other region. Our vision is to be a community for our staff of all genders and none. We do that through events and communications. We advocate as well inside the government to make it more gender equal. One example is working on the gender pay gap. And then we make sure that gender equality is an everyday business as usual. I'll give you an example a bit later about that. Actually, the everyday business as usual is interesting for you to know about what we are doing to work with private sector to increase female participation, make sure that we are as inclusive as possible. Some interesting fact is the fact that the UK government organized the first female founders in tech delegation to the UK back in 2019. We brought with us 30 female founders from 10 different European countries to London, and would love to do it again if there is interest to do this event again. And then we also do advocacy events in specific sectors. I'm a trade and investment advisor in financial services based at the British Embassy in Paris, and have organized about 10 events about women in finance, women in fintech, women in business, etc. And you have all these events across the world. So if you're based again outside of London, reach out to your British Embassy locally, and I'm sure you'll be able to participate to some of the events happening in your region. Lastly, the Department for International Trade has also changed their marketing campaign. Now we make sure that we have the right marketing collateral to be as inclusive and diverse as possible, because we realize that we want that much, representative of the business community. So that's a great change and a great success that we're happy to have put forward. And what might be interesting also is for Katrina to let you know what is happening a bit more in the Europe region on the gender equality front.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your presentation. Just quickly mention that recently me and my co-chair, who is from the Netherlands and is actually a man, so very happy to have a man on board on this mission. We have organized an open discussion around equal paid parental leave and the discrimination that women still face in the world of politics. So if you have any suggestion, any event that you like to see in a public format, also please let us know, and we'll be very happy to hear from you.
Fantastic, thanks. So last words from me, please get in touch with us if you have if our presentation has sparked any interest, if you'd like to do any more initiatives, projects, if anything has sparked your interest on a specific sector, reach out, and we'd love to hear from you to make sure that we have more female founders in the UK, but also in the world. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Laura, Katarina. I'm really impressed by the great work that you do and that you continue putting this topic to the spotlight at DIT continuously. We have now come to the end of today's masterclass. I hope you all enjoyed it and are taking away some interesting ideas for thought. The potential in female-led businesses is huge, and addressing any impediments to it is certainly very important. Finally, I also want to thank my colleagues Elias, Antonia, and Mauricio, with whom we jointly work within the VC Matchmaking team of DIT to serve as a bridge between European startups and UK venture capital funds. So they deserve certainly huge credit for today's session too. Thank you for listening, and have a good rest of the afternoon.